What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and as you all know, I warehouse a ton of data behind the scenes on this channel, and I don't always do content on it, right? Because some of the content is just interesting to me and you all don't like, and some of the content I just don't have time to do, but I'm always warehousing the data. And one of the data points that I've been doing for the last year that I think is really cool is every month, right around the 15th of every month, I take the top 20 singles cards from every set that has a booster box, and I simply collect their price points, and I measure it over time, and I do it for the XY era, the Sun and Moon era, the Sword and Shield era, and now the Scarlet and Violet era. And I do that so as we get later and later, when we have new sets and new eras, we can always compare how they perform versus sets from the past. And you know, as I always say, I don't have a crystal ball, but I certainly like to take lessons from the past and apply them to the present to hopefully give me some idea what might happen in the future, because I want to feel good when I spend my money. I really do. Like, I love collecting. I do this because I am a huge collector, but I'm also a growth collector. I really enjoy collecting when things appreciate in value, and that's what I try and do here. And I haven't done content on this XY space in quite a while, but the things that have been going on are really special, and I thought it's worth a video and we should talk about it. Now, we did talk about this trend months ago. Like, we identified very early on in this upward and the right trajectory of the top 20 singles cards in the XY era that it was a very strong, organic, natural growth. And one of the things that we identified early on too was, if you look, I started this I don't know, data warehousing back in October of 2023, and the total value for the top 20 singles cards from all the sets that have booster boxes in the XY era was $4,417. And what I called out back then was, if you look at Sun and Moon at that exact same point in time, the top 20 singles cards from all the sets that had booster boxes in Sun and Moon was at $12,000. It was 3 times higher than where XY was. And then if you look at where Sword and Shield was at that point, it was at $7,000. So both of those other eras, top 20 singles cards from the set that had booster boxes, was significantly higher. And when you think about XY, people didn't collect back then the way they do now. People weren't hoarding booster boxes thinking that they're going to be worth millions of dollars in the future. They were way less condition conscious, right? You didn't have a ton of cards going to PSA. If you look at the PSA 10 gem mint population for a lot of cards in XY, they're super, super low. So for all of those reasons, I thought, man, XY is being really overlooked. And as you can see, over the last 6, 8, 10 months, this card, they've performed really well. And again, just super organic, super slow growth, super healthy growth. And XY still, when you think about it, I mean, the total aggregate value right here is right at $5,000. That's still not a lot compared to the Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield counterpoints. So I don't know if it has more growth in it. I don't know if it's still undervalued, but I do know we're going to look at a lot of singles cards right now that have performed really well over the last year. They're big names, they're stunning art, and I get really excited about that. So not only do I aggregate those top 20 singles cards, but I also look at booster box pricing. And booster boxes is where XY has performed a little bit different than what we traditionally see. What do I mean by that? Well, the graph is pretty herky-jerky, right? Like, this is not a graph we expect to see when we look at booster box prices over time, right? Sealed product traditionally always goes up in value over time, but that does not mean that it moves linearly up over time. There will be times when sealed product goes up and down, but at the end of the day, pretty much you can expect the sealed product today to be worth more in the future. And as you can see, over the last 6 months, the booster boxes from XY have been coming down a little bit. Now, think about the jumping off point, though. If you look, when we started doing this back in October, the total value of these 12 booster boxes was right around $12,000, almost $8,000 a booster box, right? So the jumping off point was really high. Plus you had those huge sets like Flash Fire, you had Ancient Origin, you got Phantom Forces is in there, right? Even XY base set booster boxes go for a ton, again, because people weren't holding them. People weren't keeping them sealed. So when you think about supply and demand, the supply for these sealed booster boxes is really, really low, which is what's driving the price up. So it's an interesting graph to follow here. Now, I do pull all of my information for booster boxes from Polkadata.io. I will tell you right now, I think that is my, well, I don't think, I know that is my favorite source. When I pull all these aggregates of the top 20 singles cards and booster box prices, I get it all from Polkadata.io. I actually really enjoy them because they will pull eBay prices. TCG players, more of a collector space, right? You can still get awesome cards to invest in off there. But I really think that the barometer for a true price of an object is what it sells for on eBay, the world's biggest marketplace. So I do that. If you're interested, I have a a link down below in the description. I have a little partnership with them, so if you want to check them out, you can check them out and use my code and stuff, but I'm not to promote that. I'm just telling you where I get the information from and why I think it's awesome. So these are the booster box prices. I'm not freaking out, right? Like obviously it was up to $14,000 was the aggregate of these 12 booster boxes all the way back in March, so not a big deal that it's coming down. This isn't a sign that sealed is on the decline or that anything's going to happen. Like they're just super expensive booster boxes that only a few people can afford, and really 1 or 2 sales of some of these booster boxes can fundamentally change this price over time. So now we've talked about booster boxes, we've talked about the aggregate of the top 20 singles cards. Let's look at some of these singles cards that are making all of this happen. Now before I get into that, as you can see, I do a ton of work on this channel. I'm happy to do it. I love doing it. I think it serves a purpose in the community. But if you enjoy it too and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, I'd appreciate it if you do. It really helps me out. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up, and if you have questions or comments, drop them down below. So let's start looking at some of these cards that have been absolutely crushing it. Starting off with the Groudon, right? Ancient Origins, we talked about it. This is a huge set here. Lots of going on this card. Now we're going to see lots of things going on all of these cards, but this card, if you look at it back in October of 2023, it was about a $70 card, and it is now knocking on the door of $100. But again, just like we saw in that price graph on slide number 1, you see that this has been steady organic growth. You can see those light blue bars represent the number of sales that have happened over periods of time, and of course there's a lot of 1s, a couple 2s, all the way up to 4 at its highest price point, at the 1-year high, right where we're at right now. 4 of these cards have been sold. I think a lot of people, and we'll talk about this throughout the course of the video, I think a lot of people are going to realize that some of these cards, super hard to get in PSA 10 gem mints, awesome Pokemon with big names, and again, I think they're undervalued compared to what we're going to see further down the road. I actually went back and looked at some black and white prices. Black and white prices are significantly higher, so you got Sun and Moon up here, you got black and white right here, and then you got XY, which is kind of cratering in the middle. Man, as an investor, that is exactly what I look for. So off after this card, Phantom Forces, you know I'm a Gengar guy, so obviously Phantom Forces is my jam. This Gengar EX card right here has absolutely crushed it over the last year. Now, it has been working its way down a little bit, not a big deal, right? It is still up 46% over the last year, and you can get this card at $150. Again, Phantom Forces booster boxes are through the roof. It is one of the big 3 sets from the whole XY era. I'm not saying it's undervalued. It might be rightly valued. I think the artwork is really fire, but again, this is one of the cards that has certainly contributed to that growth over the last year from a singles card perspective. I love this card. I'm going to buy this card. I don't know when. I don't know if I'm going to buy it at 148 bucks, to be honest, but I do think this card is fire, and I definitely want it for my Gengar collection. Next one right here, again, I'm trying to go from different sets, but Groudon right here just continues to perform set after set after set. So this one is from Primal Clash right here, and again, another example of slow and steady growth over the last year, up 67.76%. Oh my goodness. And you know I always say, don't buy what has gone up, buy what will go up, but that doesn't mean that you can't buy things that are in the process of that growth stage, right? Like you're never going to know where the bottom is. You're never going to buy every investment at the bottom. A lot of times you'll have to buy things on the upswing as long as you believe that in the long run, it still has more growth opportunities. I'm not saying this card is it. I'm not saying any of these cards are it. I'm not saying XY is it. All I'm saying is if you want to be a buttoned up, leveled up investor, you got to think about those things. And this card certainly has had a very, very strong showing, coming in at $76, up 67% over the last year. Absolutely crazy stuff. Now, next one right here, the Lucario from Furious Fist. Now, this one saw its growth happen much later, and this was another one of those cool cards that we had identified a couple months ago and just saying, hey, listen, these cards that are at the top of these XY sets, which this card is, it's at the very top of Furious Fists, they're starting to get exciting, like they're starting to pop off a little bit in price. Don't let this one fly under the radar. And what have we seen? We've seen it really pop off. Now, again, look at that light blue line. You see that all the way back in, it looks like April. Somebody bought probably all of them that were on TCG Player. You see that big blue line that spiked up. They bought all 8 of them. So you see the price spike up along with that. But what's encouraging is it continued to grow in price. A lot of times when you see a buyout, you'll see the price spike and it'll slowly work its way down as whoever did the buyout, they start to sell them, and obviously the market keeps the price coming down. But this one has increased in price over time, which is really exciting. It's really cool to see. So kudos to this Lucario. Love this set. Love Furious Fists. And again, up almost 100% over the last year. Wild to think about. Next card right here. I love Rayquaza. I know everybody does. I'm a Ray guy. I love Roaring Skies. You can go back as far as you want. Ever since this channel started, I have been saying Roaring Skies is the most overlooked, underappreciated set in all of the eras. You look at Sun and Moon, you look at Sword and Shield, you look at XY, Roaring Skies is a fantastic fantastic set, and for whatever reason, I always felt like it has been being overlooked. And this card, which was at $65, $60 towards the beginning of the year, has finally seen its big price spike up almost 150%. The Mega Rayquaza right here, absolutely killing the game, up 148% at $166. Stunner of a card. I still think in the grand scheme of things, Roaring Skies booster boxes are undervalued. I think they're at about $600, $700 right now, which I still think is a great price. It's a great approachable price. You know, again, not everybody has $600, $700. I know I have to figure out if I want to spend that kind of money. I got to kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. But from a long-term perspective, again, not a lot of these are going to be out there. I think it is a awesome, awesome thing to consider. So Roaring Skies is epic. This card is epic. And again, up 148% over the last year. Absolutely insane. Next one right here. Flashfire is a Charizard set. We all know that. Flashfire is probably the best set in the XY era, at least from a booster box pricing perspective, from an average of top 20 cards perspective. Like, there are two different blue Charizards. There's the secret variant, which is up in the $300 range. And then you have this one right here, which is not a bad consolation prize. This card is absolutely stunning. It's at $112 right now. Not as aggressive as a price movement as we've seen in some of these other cards, but it's still up 30% over the course of the year. Name one investment that you wouldn't want a 30% gain over a 12-month period. And there's not a single investor out there who would not be doing backflips for that opportunity, and that is what this card has delivered. It's got the big name in Charizard. It's from probably the biggest set from the XY era, so there is a ton of love about this card, and again, super exciting to see. And you look at the sales volume, like, this card sells with a decent amount of velocity, so just another really exciting, really cool card to have on the list right here. Primal Kyogre. Okay, I love this card. I know I was trying to just do one card from every single set, but I had to have this one on here, even though this is the second card from Ancient Origins. I just think this is a stunner of a card, right? You know that I don't know. I've done a lot of talk about this card, and I think it's really awesome that it is finally starting to see some of its price appreciation. Now, again, this hasn't seen as aggressive of a price growth as any of the other cards that we look at. And again, the price started growing in March, and I'm not saying it has more growth ahead of it. I'm not saying now's the time to get in, but it sure is interesting to look at this card when we've seen a lot of these other ones performing really well over the course of the year. You know, this card is just kind of getting started. Where's the top? I don't know. I do know Ancient Origins is a very expensive booster box, and a lot of people like that set. So it'll be interesting to see where this card performs in the long run. That's it. That is it. So if you like this view on XY, let me know. I traditionally don't do a ton of XY content simply because not a lot of people watch it, which I totally get. Everybody's focused on the present. Everybody's focused on Surging Sparks and Twilight Masquerade and Greninja EX, and I get it. That's fun. That's the exciting part of the hobby. But guess what? Some of the best gains come from the least exciting investments. I promise you, that is great investment advice right there. So if you like the content, give us a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, and if you want to see more data-driven stuff like this, hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you more than I can say. I hope you have an epic one. I'll talk to you soon, everybody. Bye.